All right, everybody. Welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So today we are looking at a career path that is a lot more fascinating than it sounds on paper at first glance. We are diving into the world of industrial assembly supervisors.
Absolutely.
Now, for those of you who might think this is a little old school, a little old-fashioned,
Uh,
I've got news for you. This is not your grandparents' assembly line.
no, not at all.
We're talking automation, we're talking robots.
Lots of robots.
Okay, so robots, you have my attention. So what does an industrial assembly supervisor actually DO all day?
Well, when you think of a supervisor, you might picture someone standing over their employees with a clipboard, yelling at them to go faster.
Yeah, the old stereotype?
Yeah, exactly. But a more accurate picture, at least in this industry, is to think about like the conductor of an orchestra. But instead of leading musicians, you're leading a team of people and machines and materials. And you've got to make sure they're all working in harmony to meet those production goals.
All right, so you're painting a vivid picture here.
Yeah.
But let's get specific. What does this conducting actually look like in practice? What's a typical day like for an industrial assembly supervisor?
Well, every day is different, but let's say you start your day by checking your email, maybe grabbing a cup of coffee, and then boom, all of a sudden one of the robotic arms on the assembly line goes offline.
Oh,
And not only is that throwing a wrench into the entire production schedule, but now you've got stressed out workers wondering what's going on, and you're responsible for figuring out what went wrong.
so you're not just sipping coffee and overseeing things from a distance. You're right there in the thick of it, troubleshooting tech issues,
Okay.
managing people under pressure.
Exactly. And making sure everyone is following safety protocols because remember, we're talking heavy machinery here. And oh yeah, those robots, while super cool, can also be dangerous if something goes wrong.
Okay, so maybe not a job for the faint of heart, but for those who thrive under pressure, who enjoy a fast-paced, challenging environment, this is starting to sound kind of exhilarating.
That's a great way to put it. And that's something we really wanted to highlight from the RoleCatcher guide we used as a source.
Right.
It's not just about understanding the tasks, but really figuring out if this is the right environment for you.
Absolutely. So let's say someone is listening to this and they're thinking, bring on the challenge. I'm ready to conduct this symphony of robots and deadlines. What are the essential skills they need to excel as an industrial assembly supervisor?
Well, you might think that technical expertise is the most important skill.
And it is important, or is it?
Of course. But what's interesting is that according to RoleCatcher, the most crucial skill for this role is actually active listening.
Wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me that being a good listener is more important than knowing how to fix a robotic arm or troubleshoot a complex piece of machinery.
Think about it. You're managing a diverse team of people, each with their own experiences, concerns, and maybe even a little bit of apprehension about working alongside robots.
That makes sense.
Being able to really listen to your team, not just hearing their words, but truly understanding their perspectives, that's what builds trust. And that's what ultimately creates a more productive and efficient work environment.
So it's not enough to just bark orders and expect everyone to fall in line.
Yeah.
You need to be able to communicate effectively, to empathize with your team, and to create a sense of shared purpose.
Exactly. And that all starts with listening.
That makes a lot of sense. Because you can have all the technical solutions in the world, but if you can't get your team on board, if you can't create that sense of buy-in, then those solutions aren't going to be very effective.
Right. And don't forget about those potential hazards RoleCatcher mentioned.
Oh yeah, those weren't all about malfunctioning robots, were they?
No, sometimes those hazards are about unspoken tensions or miscommunications within the team.
So being a good listener isn't just about productivity, it's also about safety.
Exactly. And that's where another crucial skill comes in social perceptiveness. You need to be able to read the room, understand the dynamics at play, and address potential issues before they become major problems.
It's like being part detective, part therapist, and part air traffic controller all rolled into one. And you've got to keep those assembly lines moving.
That's the name of the game.
So we've talked about active listening and social perceptiveness. But what about those hard skills? What about the technical know-how? How important is that for an aspiring industrial assembly supervisor?
It's definitely still important.
Okay, good. I was starting to get a little worried there.
But it's not the only thing. Remember those percentages that RoleCatcher provided?
Oh, you mean like how much production and processing knowledge versus computers and electronics is required? Because I was looking at that and thinking 55% for computers and electronics. That seems pretty high for a job that, Sounds pretty hands-on.
It just goes to show how much technology has become integrated into every aspect of manufacturing,
Yeah.
and that's only going to continue to grow in the future.
Yeah.
So while you don't necessarily need to be a computer programmer to succeed in this role, a basic understanding of automation, robotics, and how these systems work is definitely becoming more and more essential.
So maybe alongside those wrenches and clipboards, a little bit of coding knowledge wouldn't hurt either.
Exactly. It's all about being adaptable and staying ahead of the curve in a rapidly evolving field.
So you're saying that a willingness to learn and adapt is just as important as any specific technical skill.
Absolutely. Because the world of manufacturing is constantly changing, and you've got to be ready to change with it.
It's so true. Okay, so we've established that becoming an industrial assembly supervisor requires a unique blend of hard and soft skills,
Yeah.
a willingness to learn and adapt, and a comfort level with a certain amount of controlled chaos. But what about the career path itself? How does someone actually get their foot in the door and start climbing that ladder to success?
Right. You don't just wake up one morning and decide, today I'm going to be an industrial assembly supervisor and magically make it happen.
Oh, I wish it were that easy.
Right. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut to success.
Darn it.
But the good news is that the path to becoming an industrial assembly supervisor is pretty straightforward. And RoleCatcher does a great job of outlining the typical career progression.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, it typically starts with working your way up from an entry-level position on the factory floor.
So getting your hands dirty, learning the ropes from the ground up.
Exactly. And this is where those hands-on experiences that you gain early on become absolutely invaluable.
Because you can't effectively lead a team if you don't understand what their day-to-day reality is like, right?
Exactly. You got to walk the walk before you can talk the talk.
I like it. So RoleCatcher provided some real-world examples of this career progression. Can you walk me through what that journey might look like for someone who's just starting out?
Sure. So you might start as an industrial assembly worker right there on the factory floor.
Okay.
And in that role, you'd be learning the assembly process from the ground up, how to use different tools and machines, how to work as part of a team.
So it's like a paid apprenticeship.
It's a great way to think about it. And then as you gain experience and demonstrate your skills, you might move up to a junior industrial assembly technician role.
Okay, so more responsibility, more complex tasks.
Exactly. And then from there, with hard work, maybe some additional training or certifications, you could eventually work your way up to that coveted senior industrial assembly specialist position, which is where you really start to take on those leadership responsibilities that we talked about earlier.
So there's a clear ladder to climb. But how long does that climb typically take? What's the timeline look like?
Well, RoleCatcher mentioned that the job outlook for this field is stable, which is good news for job security, but it also suggests that it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah, no overnight success stories here.
Not really. It's the kind of field where you have to put in the time and effort to climb the ranks. But for those who are willing to put in the work, it can be a very rewarding career path.
Okay, so stable is good, especially in today's uncertain job market. But within that stable environment, what can someone do to really stand out? What separates the good supervisors from the truly exceptional ones?
That's such a great question, and it's something that RoleCatcher emphasizes throughout their guide, Continuous Learning.
Oh, here we go, those two magic words. What does continuous learning look like in the context of industrial assembly supervision?
It's all about staying ahead of the curve. Because the manufacturing world is changing so rapidly with all the new technologies and processes emerging, you can't just rest on your laurels and expect to stay competitive.
Yeah, complacency can be a career killer for sure.
It really can. So you need to be constantly learning, constantly expanding your knowledge and skill set.
So it's not just about those on-the-job experiences. It's about seeking out additional training, maybe.
Exactly. Think certifications, workshops, industry conferences, anything that can help you stay up to date on the latest trends and technologies.
So it's like leveling up your character in a video game. But instead of earning digital badges, you're earning real-world credentials. I like it.
Exactly. And there are some really valuable certifications out there that can give aspiring supervisors a real competitive edge.
Okay, spill the beans. Which certifications are we talking about here?
Well, one that comes to mind is the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification.
Ooh, Lean Six Sigma. That sounds a little intimidating.
I know it sounds kind of technical, but it's really all about improving efficiency and eliminating waste in a process.
Ah, so streamlining things, making sure everything runs like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. And having that certification on your resume shows potential employers that you have the skills and knowledge to do just that.
Okay, that makes sense. So Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, that's one to keep in mind. What else you got?
Well, there's also the Certified Manufacturing Technologist Certification, or CMFGT for short,
CMSGT, got it.
which demonstrates a broad understanding of manufacturing processes and technologies.
Okay,
And then there's the Certified Manufacturing Engineer credential.
that sounds pretty intense.
It's definitely more on the engineering side of things, so it might not be necessary for every supervisor role, but it can be a valuable asset if you're looking to move into a more technical or management-focused position down the line.
So it's about having options, about keeping those career doors open.
Exactly. And choosing the right certification really depends on your individual career goals and interests.
So it's not one size fits all. It's about finding the certifications that align with your personal career journey.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about the skills, the experience, the certifications, but now let's talk about actually landing the job. Because you can have all the qualifications in the world, but if you don't nail that interview process, it's all for nothing.
You're preaching to the choir. The interview is where you get to showcase those skills and experience.
It's your time to shine.
Exactly. And luckily, RoleCatcher's platform has some amazing resources to help you prepare.
Oh yeah, tell me more.
Well, remember how we talked about their AI-powered CV and resume builder?
Yeah, the one that's like having your own personal marketing team?
Yes. Well, they also have this incredible database of interview questions specifically tailored to Industrial Assembly Supervisor roles.
Okay, so they've got you covered for the resume A&D, the interview. That's awesome.
It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
I like the way you think. So they had this massive database of potential interview questions. How does that work exactly?
Well, according to their website, they have over 120,000 questions.
Wow, 120,000. That's a lot of questions.
It is. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to practice all 120,000.
Yeah, no one has time for that.
But the idea is that by using their system, you're exposed to a wide range of potential questions and scenarios, which can help you feel more prepared and confident going into that interview.
So it's like having a crystal ball that gives you a sneak peek at the interview questions.
Exactly. Okay, maybe not a crystal ball, but you get the idea.
I do. It's about being as prepared as possible, anticipating those tricky questions, and having those answers ready to go.
Exactly. And I think what's really cool about RoleCatcher's approach is that they're not just focused on helping you ace the interview. They're really trying to help you find the right career path for you.
I like that. Because it's not just about getting a job, it's about finding a career that you're passionate about, a career that aligns with your skills and interests, and a career where you can actually see yourself being successful.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think this deep dive has really highlighted that.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground here, from rogue robots to the importance of soft skills to the value of continuous learning. It's clear that being an industrial assembly supervisor is so much more than just overseeing an assembly line.
It really is. It's a dynamic and challenging and ultimately rewarding career path for those who are up for the challenge.
Well said. So as we wrap things up, is there anything else that really stood out to you from the RoleCatcher Guide? Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who might be considering this career path?
You know, one thing that really struck me was the emphasis on social perceptiveness. And that's something we touched on earlier, but I think it's worth reiterating because in today's increasingly automated world, those human skills, those interpersonal skills, are only going to become more important.
That's a really good point. Because we often think about automation as replacing human jobs. But what we're seeing is that it's actually creating a greater need for those uniquely human skills. Things like empathy, communication, and the ability to build strong relationships.
Exactly. And those are the skills that can't be automated. Those are the skills that will set you apart in any field, especially in a leadership role like this one.
Absolutely. So to all those aspiring supervisors out there, remember, hone those technical skills, stay curious, never stop learning, but also don't forget to nurture those human connections. Because at the end of the day, it's the people, not the robots, who will make or break your success.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into the fascinating world of industrial assembly supervisors. We explored the challenges, the rewards, the skills, and even some resources to help you land that dream job. Now it's up to you to take that knowledge, do your own research, and decide if this is the right career path for you. And hey, if you, DO, decide to take the plunge, be sure to let us know how it goes. We love hearing from our listeners. Until next time, keep those gears turning.